Good evening, one and all. Welcome to Blue Tinted Glasses, and this is your Leicester City versus Chelsea match preview live. We're going to look at the tactics. We're going to look at this fine fella, not a bald fraud, Mr. ENZO Maresca, and what he's up to Chelsea. But today, I'm very lucky that I'm joined by the main man from Blue Tinted Glasses. It's Locks himself. How you doing, Locks?
Yes, mate. Again, just like the analysis last week, I'm happy to be here with you, mate. I always enjoy all of your content, and it's really nice as well to be a part of it as well. So yeah, brilliant stuff.
Yeah, it's like being in a passenger seat for once. It's more relaxing. Let the other person do the driving. Well, you do most of the driving, so thanks a lot. So like this, Evening Kunal, he's calling it the Enzo Derby, the Drinkwater Derby, and the Fafana Derby. You can take your pick as to which one it is. So welcome one and all. Let's look at a manager who was brilliant for us last season, but is now in the opposite dugout, and it's Enzo Maresca. Before we get into the match, yeah, you are going to need your blue tinted glasses for this one, Locks, because unfortunately, let's be honest with you, we were just talking about this off air, but our season has been absolutely rocked with some devastating news this week, and that's this. Abdul Fatawu is out for the rest of the season. Brave lad putting his two thumbs up. It's another ACL. I think, to be fair, this time it's happened while he's away on international duty. Injuries can happen to any manager, but with him now and Ricardo injured, that's not looking great for our right-hand side. And yeah, let's be honest, I think we all felt if we were going to stay up this season, we were putting a lot of faith in Abdul Fatawu. So he was just starting to, I think, really adapt to the Premier League, looking very dangerous. So that's a real blow. And that is going to affect things in this game, I think. But anyway, let's try and move on. Here's just some more injury news that I picked up from Owen Palmer-Atkin. So he's got an ACL and is out for the rest of the season. Cooper said to happen at such a young age is a blow for him and a blow for us as well. Huge disappointment for Abdul in the club. Just it was showing his Premier League quality. Just as Dawn says, hi all, awful about Fatawu. How about the rest of the team? Well, don't worry, everyone. Daka is available. Vardy is training, but on a modified schedule. So that sounds to me like he might not start, but might be available. This one's interesting. Ayew could be available with his injury not as bad as first thought, because I do remember earlier in the week, the rumours were that Ayew had the ACL and Fatawu didn't. Probably kind of wish it was the other way around. Nothing against Jordan Ayew. Ole, ole, ole. But we know which one we value more. And it seems like Bobby de Cordova-Reid is being monitored as the cut above his Achilles still hasn't fully healed, because I was thinking he might come in. Sean said he thinks Eduard is starting. We'll look at that. That is definitely possible. Looking at the table, nothing to worry about here, folks. We're only playing the team third in the Premier League, 9 points ahead of us and a massive 12 places. I do have to say, their recent form is not too great, Chelsea. 2 draws, and in their last 5, they've actually drawn 3 and lost 1, but they have actually played some of the better teams in the league. As for us, we're in 15th, 3 points above relegation places, but it feels like we could start slipping into it. But what I will say is I think that a lot of the other teams down the bottom also have some tough fixtures. So I've got a feeling we still won't be in the quagmire after this one. Let's have a look at some of Chelsea's recent form. So, like I mentioned, they played quite a lot of the top teams recently. So here they were up against Arsenal. 1-1 it finished. Very even game, I would say. You can see even in XG, in terms of possession, shots on target, pretty even game. But I think it is impressive from Chelsea that Maresca's not been there a long time. And, Arsenal were hotly tipped to win the title this season. I don't think they will, based on how they've started. But still, decent result for them, I think. 1-1. Prior to that, they played the team that just beat us 3-0, Man United. And they also played them away from home. And this one was 1-1 as well. But this one was interesting, actually, because if anything, Man United probably shaded it. Interesting, there wasn't so many shots on target from both teams. But finished 1-1 there again. Chelsea, I think, did actually... they went behind, but they scored a really good equaliser from Moises Caicedo. And before that, they had another game against Chelsea. Actually, you know what? I've got this wrong. They actually won this game 2-1. Chelsea beat Newcastle for this game. And again, very close game. We haven't played Newcastle just yet, so it'll be interesting to see what happens when we play them. But one thing that I wanted to point out about all these matches is if you look at the possession, what's kind of unusual, maybe other than the Man United match, is the possessions maybe not as high as you might think it would be. Because if you remember when we had Maresca, we really tried to dominate the possession statistics. So I had a look at that, and they're still doing pretty well. So actually, they're in the top 5 for possession. But look at that, Southampton actually have more possession than Chelsea do, which I think is very interesting. Leicester are down here in 12, which I think is not as bad as I thought it would be, to be honest with you. I think for a team just coming up, that's actually quite a solid showing. But what I think this shows about Maresca's Chelsea is I think he's had a really big impact. He's got into the team early and he's managed to get his style of play across. But I think that's the one thing that they're missing at the moment, that they're not like totally dominating games and then going to be able to pick them apart. So I think he's done a good job. And I'm going to show you in a minute why that may or may not be. But that's the thing that they're lacking. So that's why I don't think Chelsea are going to be title challengers this season. It wouldn't surprise me, though, if next season, or especially the season afterwards, they really start pushing on, because otherwise a lot of their underlying stats are looking great.
I've got a question, Anil. Do you know where we were last season in the Championship on possession, where Leicester were?
Second.
Did we finish top? Second. Who's first?
Southampton again were above us. Yeah.
Interesting.
But it's like, if you looked at how many sort of expected goals we had, were much higher than Southampton. So I think the thing with Russell Martin's system is he is a bit sort of sideways and back for the sake of it, a bit like how Brendan Rodgers liked to do it. Whereas Enzo, as we'll see, he's all about using it a little bit, more aggressively. So who remembers this guy, chat? Do you remember this manager? The good times. I'm going to show you.
Beautiful man.
he was, but look, to be fair, not everyone likes him or his style of football. But for me, I really, really like this appointment, even before he played a minute for us. And the reason why is that, like, as someone who follows a lot of football, but especially on the tactical side, what I think Enzo does is I think he's amongst the very pinnacle of the most modern managers in Europe. Like, he's daring to do stuff that is so new that he's like really developing what he called the meta of football, like where it could be going. And he's trying to sort of lay a blueprint. Whether you like it or not is interesting. I do know, for example, that Arsene Wenger sort of is against the sort of systemic styles that teams are playing these days. And he's sort of saying you're missing players like your Zidans, your Ozils, the elegant playmaker can't play in a game anymore. But it is being effective. So it's interesting to notice that. So why Enzo's really good is he's got a couple of concepts that he utilizes in his team, and he makes these concepts work really effectively. And they're pretty simple concepts, but it's funny how even though football can be made to look like such a simple game, playing the game simply is actually really difficult. And what I always find impressive about Enzo is that he can get that style across to his players really, really quickly. And I'm actually interested in how he does that. Does he what sort of presentations does he do? What screens does he do? What one-to-one training does he do? Because as you've seen with Cooper, he's tried to implement his own system and the players don't get it. Whereas Enzo's been at Chelsea for a short while and they're already doing what he wants. And he did the same with us. And I've actually got some clips here from our pre-season last year. And we literally achieved the Enzo style even in the first game, which is crazy. So anyway, the first concept is this concept of finding the third man. So that's pretty simple. If the opposition's here in black and you're the team in blue, you move one of your players into space, so you've always got a free pass. So you can shift them around and you can keep control of the ball. Pretty simple. But you'll notice that in a lot of the moves, and you might remember last season, we used this third man concept a lot, and that's why Ricardo inverted into midfield. And he can see him with the keeper. So you can see that the keeper comes out to sort of play as a defender. So here, this striker is going to come to press him, but he's got a man here. This is Caicedo. He can then play it back to his defender. So they're using the third man concept to take this player out of the game, move teams around. And look, this is actually in their pre-season against Real Madrid. So you can see that they were doing it from, again, game one. Enzo had the style and he wanted them to play it. I think they lost this game 4-1. But he's like, I don't care about a friendly. You need to learn the style, right? The other thing he likes to do is to play in vacated spaces. So here again, you've got Marc Cucurella on the ball, and you can see this is Enzo Fernandez, and they've done one of these runs, and now he's going to spin into this. Basically, they're going to lure this player into Cucurella, and then he's going to play the ball where that space was. And again, you saw that beautifully last season. You make the space, you pull the team apart, and you can score these wicked goals. And it's like, even though Enzo had a lot of possession, it was funny how many of our goals looked like counter-attacking goals, even though we had more possession. And that's the reason why, because he was making that space to attack. The other big thing he likes to do is create superiorities. So here again, you can see Chelsea, and they're attacking with 5 men forwards, and the opposition have only got 4. So 5 is one more than 4. That's what the system's all about. And that should mean that it's easier to find the third man. It's easier to play in the vacated spaces, and it's easier to score the goal. So he's got all these simple concepts, but he gets it all working together very harmoniously. It's very beautiful.
Neil, can I just ask you one thing about that screenshot you just had up? So this is like last season, for example, when you look at try and apply this to Leicester, that would be the 9, the 2 8s, and the 2 wingers.
Yeah. And in Steve Cooper's system, this would be James Justin instead. And this probably would end up being Wilfred and Ndidi or something like that, something crazy like that. So that's the kind of thing. So a lot of teams played this shape, but actually you'll find out as we come here a bit later today that Enzo has made a little bit of a change here, and he's actually gone against one of his principles, but more in that in a moment. So Now I'm going to start showing you this. So this is actually from last year. So build-up shape. So what Enzo really likes to do is this 3-2-5 shape. And yeah, this is what we did last year is Ricardo would move in. You can see here, we still even got players like Harry Suter, Timothy Castagna, and Marco Brighton in the team. So this is literally from the first ever game we saw of Enzo.
Wow.
And you could see this right from the off. Here was the 3-2-5 shape. Here's Callum Doyle even. You got Ricardo and Harry Winks. Now, this is 2 minutes 20 in. And I've got to say, Lux, when I saw this, I was getting very excited. It's like, oh my goodness, we're inverting the fullback here. This is exciting. And we were doing that to create this box midfield. So again, it's about the third man. And we are trying to do this season, but I think we're doing it a lot less effectively. Although we have shown in games, even against Man United, we had quite a few nice moments where we were able to use Winks and find a spare man and make some distance that way. So that's what we're trying to do. Create a one-man advantage in midfield via this box, find a spare person. And when you find that spare person, so here we go. You managed to look, we got one free man here. The ball's going to get played into this free person, and then we're going to go and attack. So that's really what the system is in a nutshell. And yeah, I'm going to play some of this. So you might remember this from last year. Like, oh, this team in blue looks a bit good. Well, this team in blue was us. So here we're going to see, look at this, lovely. There you go, lured them in, used the box midfield. Ricardo's on the ball. Now you've got this 5 versus 4 attack. Patawu to Ricardo, they're both out injured, but that's what they can do when they work together. Is Vestergaard, Ricardo, Winks, Daka even. Look at that. What a lovely move with the false 9. One-man advantage. So Dewsbury Hall is even apologising there for scoring because he probably should have scored it. But there you go. Tom Cannon, do you remember him, Locks?
I do indeed. I do indeed.
There's
This is
Vestergaard going
stuff.
all the way up to about, 20 yards away from their goal. Is Mavadidi. Oh, that's Fatawu's playing on that side even. Don't know what he's doing there. A bit lost.
Wow.
There's Kelechi and Nacho. I could go on and on and on for this. It was obviously great football.
Then this, Anil, can I say, this is why they say to people, you know, you don't appreciate things until they're gone. Because now you look at those patterns of play and you think, God, I would do anything. I would do anything for this type of football right now. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So the montage of depression and the good old days. I mean, here again, what we're seeing here is this is the concept of finding the spare man. So you can see, look at this. I love these. Look at that. That's such a beautiful move that you're trying to just get someone in one-on-one. And the amount of times it works.
Look at it, man. Oh.
Yeah. And look at Fatawi there on the other side. It's just completely free when it works. Free-flowing, attacking. You can see, I really understand why the players love this style. Because, you know, it's just so easy on the eye when it works. Like, yeah, there's little pass backs, touches. Wolfie saying, I bet you anything Cooper will go back to a 5 and a low block. Maybe he even should do that, to be fair. Because we can have a look at them. So anyway, that's what we know Enzo likes to play. But here was the interesting thing when he was taken over at Chelsea. Chelsea, you might have heard of him, have got a player called Cole Palmer. And I don't know if you know this, Locks, but he's pretty good. In fact, I would hazard a guess to say that this season, to be honest with you, I think Mo Salah's actually been the best player this season, but Cole Palmer's got to be in the top 3. Absolutely unbelievable player. But not only did they have Cole Palmer, who cost 40 million, but Chelsea also had Enzo Fernandez, who cost 103 million, and they signed Moises Caicedo, who cost 115 million. So just with those 3, you're talking about a team that costs in excess of £250 million. And you as the manager coming in, he was probably under some pressure. Can you figure a way to get all these guys playing together? And so I was looking back at some of these games and I saw this, and this is very interesting. So this is like the passing networks. Firstly, you know how we like to talk about the half-eaten pizza slice? Yep. This is what a full pizza looks like. You can just see the distances are amazing. The passing's very equal, players all around the place. But there is one surprise about this graph. And what the surprise is that up front, there's actually only 4. There's not 5. What's going on? So what Chelsea have been doing is they've been using 2 different systems. And the system that he started off with, and he does sometimes use it, is he actually plays 4-2-3-1. And you can see that he's got Caicedo in there, he's got Enzo Fernandez, and he's got Cole Palmer. but he doesn't have 2 box crushers. And I think he did this because he recognized that Enzo Fernandez is a good player, but he's not the best at going box to box. And he's not the best at playing as like a central defensive midfielder either. So he needed to adjust the team. And also, you could argue that with Cole Palmer, he's so good that maybe you don't need so many people in the team. So here you can see that they're playing a 4-2-3-1, and you can see that they're a lot deeper. They've got fullbacks that are wider, and you can see Palmer's taking up these kind of like free positions. And here you can see again that when they attack, whereas I've been showing you in the past that they would attack with 5, here you can see that they're only attacking with 4. So that's quite a big change from Enzo. So I think because he didn't have so much time with the team in pre-season because they were doing this international tour, he couldn't really coach the style immediately. So he got them to play something that was familiar to Mauricio Pochettino last year because he also used Cole Palmer as a 10. And again, you can see that they got these 4 men forwards and this is what they do. But they still got similar concepts of like 2 wingers and a false 9 in Nicholas Jackson. And yeah, here you can see their 4-man attack. They're again creating exactly the same thing though. So even though there's 4 and 3, so 1-man advantage gets played into Madueke and Madueke scores it. And you can see here, this is early on in his tenure and that was for 5-2. So they're already, figuring out a way that worked against quite attacking teams. And again, you can sort of see a similar idea here that they got someone on the ball. Here's Cole Palmer. He's going to peel off and he's like the key man that they're going to find in space and he tucks it away. So anyway, they started with this 4-man attack. But what happened after a few games, I would say about halfway through this season, is I think Enzo, he's a smart guy, right? And he knows who is and isn't performing. And basically, he had a look at Enzo Fernandez and he was like, you're not cutting it. I don't care if he cost 103 million. You know how he's prepared to put people into the bomb squad. And you could tell that Enzo wanted to go back to his 5-man attack. So that is what they have now started doing. So this is obviously a much more familiar, right? The 3 centre-backs, 2 midfielders, and you've got 5 here up the front where he's trying to attack with. Although there is already something that's a bit interesting here. And the player, if it's not kind of sticking out like a sore thumb, is this person, is the box crusher, which is Malo Gusto, who is a fullback. And we'll come to that in a moment. But here you can see they're doing similar stuff. So they've got this low build-up. I think he has made a few tweaks. One tweak I see is that these centre-backs push much wider than they did with us. Our centre-backs did also go wide, but look, Cucurella is almost like playing right on the touchline. So they're trying to do that to spread out the space as much as possible to make more passing angles to get up. And yeah, here we go. That's the thing. And as I've said, that's what they were in low build-up. So Sanchez comes forward to act as a centre-back, and they got this 4-man in the back. But then when they push up, they want to form this shape ideally, and they want to be playing in the opposition's half. So spoilers, for this game, we're going to see a lot of the ball in our half, right? And it's going to be like, can we do something on the counter attack?
Can I see that the 2 screen, the one before that? Yeah. Sorry, forward one. There we go. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, okay.
Well, we're going to come more to that because there are some big things that stick out there. Yeah. But yeah, using the 5-man attack. So here we can see they've got their 3-2-5. Here they've played it into, I actually don't know who this is. Too many players at Chelsea. I think that might be Neto. But you can see the sort of thing that they're going to do. They're going to play it into the middle. Jackson's going to do this spin run, play the ball right over the top. And that's Nicholas Jackson who's in. And that's 1-0 up against Liverpool. So it's a good performance from them. Here's another thing that they're doing. So here you've got Cucurella. So here he was inverting into central midfield. So they were doing that. But you'll notice they changed some things. Enzo Fernandez is going to come back. They're going to do this familiar run where they're going to, pass in. They've got the spare man with the box midfield. Because if I say there's going to get the ball and he puts the ball through. Remember this move? I literally showed it to you before and the sort of stuff that Enzo was doing. Jackson is through and it's a great finish. And this was for 3-0 up against West Ham after 20 minutes. So pretty impressive. So with all of that, and if I've said that Enzo Fernandez isn't getting into the team, you might think about, what about this guy? Do you remember him? He was pretty good for us. He was in a lot of the clips that I showed you. But Kieran Dewsbury Hall's not getting into the team either. So what's interesting is that he's doing this, and he is playing a player here as an inverted player. But what's happening? It was Gusto, but now it's starting to become Mark Cucurella. And essentially, what he's doing is that he's inverting a fullback, but rather than the inverted fullback playing as a CDM, they're actually playing as a number 8, which is up here, Mark Cucurella. And you can see the space that he's come back from. Yes, and you mentioned to me, who was it that you actually said in your very lineup, but Fox's Den, that was doing that? Can you tell me?
In my lineup?
Yeah.
Oliver Skipp.
It was Oliver Skipp. That's what he was doing at Spurs. He was playing the same way. He was inverting, but the way that Spurs invert is they invert their fullbacks actually to become number 8s.
And can I also ask, didn't in one of the games at Leicester last season, or maybe two, we did see Ricardo as a box crasher?
We did.
Go on.
But when we did it, what we were doing it against is we were doing against teams that were parking the bus. So if we knew that they were going to play a 5-4-1, he would just have Winks on his own. So the first game we saw that again was Preston North End. But actually what happened is Preston North End, he thought that they were going to play 5-4-1 and they didn't. They played 4-4-2 in defence. So actually in the first half, we really struggled. And in the second half, I think we beat them 3-0. And actually what he did is he brought Ricardo backwards rather than forwards because they were disrupting our build-up. But yes, there were many games where he did use Ricardo as an additional box crusher. But here you can see the thing is they've still got a 5-man attack. But this, instead of this being Enzo Fernandez, or instead of this being Kiernan Dewsbury Hall, or even Christopher Nkunku, or any, they've got so many players, Chelsea, it's ridiculous. They've actually inverted Marc Cucurella. And in this game, we have got Enzo Fernandez. And so what I think he's doing here is, like I say, he knows that Enzo Fernandez can't go box to box as much, but he has got good progressive passing. So by inverting it this way, he doesn't really have to move around as much, so he's not going to get caught out of position. Because something, and again, this is why Enzo's good. Enzo did watch all of Chelsea last year. Cooper says he watched Leicester. Did he? Don't know. But if he had have done, he would have noticed that that was one of their flaws, is that basically Moises Caicedo was getting caught out by himself the whole time. And so the way that he's got Caicedo to play really good is he just makes sure there's someone next to him. And then all of a sudden, he's actually, I've heard from the Chelsea fans that they think Caicedo, after than Palmer, has been their best player. Like, he's their most consistent player. Palmer's the one that like can do madness, like score 4 goals in 20 minutes, but he can sometimes have an off day, whereas Caicedo's giving them an 8 out of 10 every game at the moment. So yeah, that's kind of the biggest change that they've made then. So they're playing this kind of 3-2-5, but they will invert a central attacking midfielder if they go that way. I am expecting them to try and do a 5-man attack against us because if I'm being honest, we're not the strongest team. But I think when they play the really good teams, they're going 4-2-3-1 to make them a bit more stable. And so that's like a big thing is people said, oh, but Enzo, his style won't work in the Premier League. It will leave us too open. But Enzo, even with a really good team like Chelsea, he's proved that he can make the adaptations. If he's playing a team that he thinks are better or have got better kind of like finesse because they've had more time working with one another, he's proved already that he will change it and he'll do things to do it. Another thing that you might have seen in some of the earlier clips is actually Caicedo drops quite deep at times to help out in the build-up, which is another thing they've done because they know that he's good on the ball, and if they lose the ball, he's got a better chance of winning it. So yeah, he's showing his ability to adapt already. So just going to go through some other things. So how did they defend? Well, if they played a 4-2-3-1, here you can see where they defend. That's exactly the same shape that they're playing. It's really nice and compact. You can literally see the line super easy in terms of how they're playing. This was against Man City. But if they play the other system with the 5-man attack, then here you can see they've got four. They're a bit out of position here, and 2 up top. And Cole Palmer goes to join in as the attack, as next to Jackson as a striker. So I think they'll play more like this against us with a 4-4-2 in defense because they're probably not going to do that much defending, but they can go either way. Another thing that we can expect is counter pressing. We saw that obviously under Enzo last season. If they lose the ball, they're going to try and win the ball back as fast as possible. They're already 4-2 up here, but it's not going to stop them being hungry, and they turned that into a goal. And of course, if you win the ball back off a counter press, it leads to this, where you can go for a counter attack, and they might only be attacking with 4, but that's a 4 versus 2. And yeah, they scored off this one as well. Another thing that you're going to see, again, we did it last season as well, is they'll play a high line. They'll push everyone up. But of course, he's got faster players than Yannick Vestergaard. So it's going to be more effective for them, right? And he's going to have people that aren't as chaotic as Wout Faes. So unsurprisingly, you've got better players. The system's going to work more effectively. So with all that said, what do I think is the key battle going to be? And it's going to be this one, isn't it? It's going to be Pedro Neto versus James Justin. You might remember this from our last tactical analysis where we had lots of exhibits. Guys, we'll come to all the questions in a moment. Thanks to them, there's some amazing ones there. But yeah, so, a lot of us have been fearing this match for a long time. And the reason we've been fearing it is we've thought this is a little bit like the PE teacher against Darth Vader. And Darth Vader, he will have watched the videos, and I think he'll be laughing his head off, in my honest opinion. And I guess my TLDR for Steve Cooper or anyone at the club is whatever you do, do not do the system that you've been playing all season. I actually don't care if he does something mental, like some of the things suggested on Fox's Den, right? Or Wolfie's put in here, just play 5 at the back and play low block. I would prefer that, even if it's a tough watch, because if we play this system, we will lose. It's not even a matter of like, you might get lucky. You're just going to lose. He knows what he's doing, Enzo, and he'll expose it and exploit it. So this is what happened. You got James Justin there in blue. He goes to attack. The keeper gets it instead. They go on the counter. Justin's way out of position, and you're going to lay this ball in. And because it's Enzo, he'll tell them to play a smarter ball than just trying to go down the line here and bypass Buonanotte. He'll play it infield or something like that. And he'll hit Pedro Neto, who will probably be in this position, and then we're going to be doomed because they've got faster players that are, I think more coached in this sort of style. So we've got to watch out for that. So how about Chelsea? Is there some sort of weakness that we can target? And I really looked at this and I was thinking, I'm not sure there is a weakness, to be honest with you, Lux. I think there is one weakness, but I think unfortunately, because Vital is injured, it's going to cost us. And I would say that I think their one weakness, as with all teams that invert their fullback, is that if Marc Cucurella is doing this, that is the space there that you'd want to attack. So if you had a fast, tricky, technical winger that carried a goal threat, you could try and set up some opportunities to target that side. And we have such a player, but unfortunately that player is out for the rest of the season. So could you do something crazy like put Mavididi on that side? No, I don't think so. If Bobby Reed, Casey McAteer, or Jordan Ayew play there, it's just not going to be the same. And there you go. The interesting Sean's put here, there's also Robert Sanchez. He's always good for a mistake. I could kind of agree with that. But to be honest with you, I think even if Chelsea make a mistake, it'll be like Mads. Like, do you remember, I think it was Birmingham, and Birmingham had one goal, and it's because Mads Hermansen made a mistake. It's one of the few mistakes he made. He still won the game 2-1. And it's like, even in the 80th minute, I still think we're probably going to win this game because just like we were really making a lot of chances. But you never know. Football's a funny old game. So what do I think the expected lineup's going to be? And I'll be interested to see what everyone in chat thinks. And I think, unfortunately, we're just down to so many bare bones that it's going to be probably one of the most pathetic teams you've seen in your life. So here you got, I've put Daka up front. I don't think it's going to be Vardy. It could be Edouard. I've only gone for Daka because I feel he said he's available for selection. Yep. I'll ask everyone in chat, if you can only choose between Edouard and Daka, who do you choose?
I say Daka.
I think it's kind of irrelevant, to be honest with you. I don't think either one's really going to give you the best. El Khanous will probably come into the team because Buonanotte's injured. That I'm not so against. Yep. I think it's good to get in minutes. And do you know what I'd say? If it's a game like this where you're probably expecting to lose anyway, actually just getting El Khanous minutes, I don't really have a problem with that because he's going to be one for the future, right? This right wing position, I think, is going to be a problem. Is it going to be Bobby Reed? Is it going to be Casey McAteer? Are we not going to go for that at all? As Wolfie said, maybe instead of this system, we'll play 5 at the back and you'll see Connor Cody coming in. I wouldn't personally be against that, to be honest with you. Otherwise, it'll be as you were. But yeah, this is already starting to look pretty bad. And I think that Chelsea would be licking their lips if they're playing against a system like this. So for my personal match predictions, I think Chelsea are in great form. They're free of injuries and they have a manager that literally knows everything about us. He knows every strength and weakness of our players, other than a few. And a lot of those players aren't even playing, like Buonanotte. And we have obvious weaknesses. And I think Maresca is going to ruthlessly exploit it. He's done it time and time again. And I think he enjoyed going up against Russell Martin, for example, just making him look stupid. I think if we're going to have any chance, I've said it before, we have to do something different. And I don't care what it is. I don't know if we can put 4 people up front or something stupid like that, but just don't do the same thing that we have been doing because that will definitely lose. And what unfortunately has come down to this, but I'm hoping that Enzo decides not to be that ruthless out of respect for the King Power fans. So for that reason, I've gone for only a 2-0 loss because I think it will get to 60 minutes and he probably will put Keane and Dewsbury all on and things like that, just so he kind of, shows a bit of respect. I don't think he'll want to finish. And again, here's an interesting one. Yeah. From Wolfie, Anil, I feel you would like Leicester to play like Forest. Yes, we've actually discussed that. We think you are the perfect example of how a team that doesn't have a squad as competitive as Chelsea or any of the top 6 or 7. Of course, you are in the top 5 right now. So other than you, that would be a good way to play. Although I will say that unfortunately for Leicester, because Abdul Fattah's got injured, it wouldn't be as effective because Forest have got Hudson-Odoi and you've got Alanga and you've got that Portuguese player that you signed as well that was pretty good when he comes on. I forget his name, you can tell me. But, we don't really have... I think if you've only got one winger, it's not as bad. But look, I've gone through a lot there. So let's get some of these questions and comments up. I'll be happy to show you things. But yeah, I mean, like I say, I've got massive respect for Enzo. I think the way that he plays is awesome. I think, as I've shown you, he's already started to adapt by doing this kind of stuff. Be very interesting. And I think it's a scary proposition. I think the fact that we're starting to see chinks in Man City's armour, finally, if there was a team that's going to take over, everyone thought it'd be Arsenal. But I think if Chelsea are this good already, it's a bit scary to see how good they could become.
Yes, mate. I've got a couple of comments here that I have starred, if you want to call it starred, because I thought they were really interesting. So the first one is from Conscious, game week. I say game week 2, GW2. Sorry. Do you think the inverted 8 is because Enzo thinks it's better, or just because Lavia and Caicedo have been too good to break up, so you have to adapt around them as a double pivot?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think initially he was probably under some pressure to play the two 100 million pound players, right? They've obviously made a huge investment. He has also been trying Mudryk at times as well, who cost like 80 million. And so like that's the thing, is like if you're not playing your best assets, they're going to decline in value. So I think he tried to find a system to do it that way. And yeah, I think he's doing it because, like I say, the key thing is that if you've got Enzo Fernandez in there, he's definitely, in fact, I'd be interested to see what people in chat think, but he looked so good in World Cup 2022 and he looked so good at Benfica in Portugal, but he's really struggled in the Premier League. I'm not obviously going to say he's Adrian Silva, but I think you've got like a similar case where you've got a player who can excel in one league and not do so well in another. So I think he's playing that way to give like him better protection. It's not like Fernandez is useless. He's still, I looked at his stats, he's reasonable. But I think for someone who costs as much money as him, you know, he's not on the same level as like a Declan Rice or who else plays that sort of position, progressive forwards. I mean, this doesn't sound controversial, but I think he's not, in Enzo's system, he's not as effective as Harry Winks was for us last season. And of course, I'm not saying that Winks is better than Enzo Fernandez, but I'm saying like if you compare it, like Winks is supposed to be one of the best players in the championship. Look how he performed. Gravenberg, that's a good one from Z. That's much better. Pretend I said Gravenberg instead of Harry Winks, everyone, so I look smarter than I actually am.
Yeah, absolutely. Brookline says just kick Cole Palmer in the shins a few times, then we'll see how Enzo performs.
That's the Luke tactic. But you know what? It's not the worst thing. I mean, yeah, I hate to say it, but you know, maybe we do need a kind of dark arts performance because yeah, the way that they're going to play is they're going to have a lot of possession and they're going to put us under a lot of pressure the whole way through the game. And I think the problem is even if we try and play a deep block, is we've got players like Fass who's got a mistake in him. We've got Vestergaard who is good, but if he gets caught just in one-on-one in a pace race, he's going to lose it. So it doesn't really fill you with hope that you've got a team that can see that out. Like if we compare it to when we had the title-winning season, I felt that like with Morgan, Hoof, Fuchs, Simpson, and you've got Kante in front of them. Like if you really need to see out a lead, you've got a good chance. And Schmeichel in goal. And that's why we had those 5-1-0 wins in a row that, you know, we were capable of doing it. But like this sort of team, we've only got one clean sheet all season. I know a lot of it's to do with the system, but I think it's not just the system, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Clibo said maybe Enzo just dumbed down his system when he had City, more able to play his variations with more gifted players. I was going to say this, Anil. I was going to ask you this earlier, actually, and I thought I'd save it. Obviously, you showed the differences and how he's kind of used a couple different systems. Do you think maybe that is part of the reason why? Because you saw that he adapted the system to benefit the likes of Palmer, Cucurella, Enzo Fernandez, more notably. Why didn't he do that with Leicester? Because one big criticism of Enzo Maresca at Leicester was that it was, you know, square pegs in round holes. Why didn't he adapt it to the Leicester players?
So I'm going to say something controversial, which is that actually I think that Leicester City looked better than Chelsea did, faster than what he's done with Chelsea. So I'd actually say it's the other way around. I think he had to play the 4-2-3-1 because he didn't have enough time to go to the system that he actually wants to play. And so like I've shown you the possession statistics, it's like because they're playing that 4-2-3-1 sometimes, they're not able to have as much control of the game because they're kind of carrying a player. So I think we're actually ahead. And yeah, like I said, I think he wanted to do. So if you remember, right, one thing he was really good at Leicester is that pre-season was really good. We only had games. Actually, we had that one weird game in Thailand, but other than that, a lot of the games were domestic. They didn't have to do that much traveling, and they had a lot of time on the training ground with the players. So that's why I felt like we looked good all right from the off. Whereas Chelsea were definitely trying to do some of the things, but in their pre-season, they played like Madrid a few times. I think they played Milan, and they were getting beaten quite heavily. And the Chelsea fans already were like, "Oh, this guy's a fraud." And it's like, well, no, if you're trying to play that style and you've only played it like 3 times, you're going to look absolutely terrible. That's the issue playing system football. So, I mean, yeah, if you look at this here, I mean, there's some of the stuff that like that was actually against Liverpool in one of our preseason games that we were playing at. I actually think we're ahead. So what I think is the scary thing for the Premier League is that I think, let's say by the end, I wonder out of 100% how far he thought Leicester got. Maybe 70, 80% or something like that. I think Chelsea are like 35%. So that's what I think is scary. But I think also, to be fair, you did say that he didn't adapt. Who knows? If we'd have had a player as talented as Cole Palmer, maybe he would have shifted it around. And I do think that when you play like the very top teams, like what I've noticed is when he plays 4-2-3-1, he's tending to do it against teams that are really high pressing, because I think he knows that he wants to be a bit more stable, and that because they've got the high quality, they don't need to attack with 5. I think you attack with 5 against teams that are going to park the bus, basically. So I don't know, if Cooper does park the bus, he goes with 5, and otherwise, if he doesn't, we go with the 4.
Okay. Wolfie has asked, is anyone in this chat Cooper in, or are you all Cooper out? Most people are Cooper out, mate. Most people are Cooper out. I mean, Wolfie also said, mate, you just need to make one change in your lineup, the manager. Sean said maybe it's just because the depth was so incongruent, I don't know, to his playing style here at Leicester.
Yeah, that we don't have quite so many options, because I think what is interesting about Chelsea, for example, is they've got a player called Christopher Nkunku, who at one point looked like one of the best players in Europe. And when Chelsea signed him, it was like a real coup. And apparently he's looking for a transfer out because he just doesn't fit their system. And it's like he's like a support striker. So he doesn't really fit either the 9 or the 10 or a box crash or anything. And he's kind of struggled. Whereas some other players, they look way better. Like, I don't think it's any surprise, for example, that Madueke didn't look that good last season for Chelsea, but this season he looks amazing, right? So it's interesting that you get some people that look good and some people that don't. And I think going back to Cooper, so here's the thing, is that like, yeah, we're all Cooper out, but I think, and we can also ask chat right here, is that like, the issue is when we've got as many injuries as we're carrying, it's like, what do we even do at this point in time, right? It's really looking quite grim for us. So, and these injuries are actually coming at the worst possible time. I think it's not surprising that we are getting injuries, right? I think when you get to Christmas, normally that's when you get them, when you're playing a game every 3 days. But like, we're already going in like this. So like, who comes in for Justin if he needs to be rotated? Don't know. Who comes in for Christensen? It's going to be Luke Thomas. I keep saying it. Run from it. Dread from it, I think CDMs is probably the one position we're all right in, but there you can go. Fatawu's out. We're in massive trouble. Who's playing there now,
We can't even play Fatawu like right back, right wing back or something like that, because that was one of the discussions that we were having. If we went down the wing back route, Fatawu is an option. All of a sudden, mate, we are now just, you don't want to say it's an injury crisis because we've only lost like 2 or 3, but like they are 2 or 3 vital players. You know what I mean? Ricardo obviously is gone. Fatawu's now out, and I don't know, mate. It's not looking good. As Sean says there, we only have 2 fit wingers and 3 fit fullbacks. Anil, you said that your prediction was like 2-0. Could you see it being a heavy one? A heavy one?
Yes, and that's if we decide to go for it. So I did see a comment earlier saying I'd rather lose 5-2 than 2-0.
Here it is here. I'd rather lose 5-2 than 3-0, at least have a go.
Yeah, I get that. But I think if you were the manager and you know that a 5-2 is quite likely, you probably wouldn't do that, right? Because you probably want to save your job. So let it depend. Yeah, because if you look at that Wolves game, Wolves lost 6-2. At one point, it was 2-2. It's a bit of a crazy game. But they did have a go because they were at home and they kept attacking, and there were just too many gaps behind. So it's like, I think, again, like I've said that, currently Chelsea, they're not that good at dominating the ball with the possession. That's the thing that they're lacking right now. So I hate to say it, but playing a deep block against them would probably work. Or credit to Forest. Forest got a draw against them and they had a man sent off. And I think that man sent off with like 25 minutes to go and they still held out for it. And they almost scored right at the end. And how did they play? 4-2-3-1, try and win the ball back in the mid block, hit them on the counter attack. So again, I keep saying, like, if I was a manager or an analyst and I was playing against a team, you'd look through all the videos and see, okay, what were some things that worked against them? with a squad profile that matches what we've got, and maybe you could do it that way. And like, I don't know, like for example, I've got McAteer here in my team, and I guess the reason is that even though he's definitely not the most technical, McAteer scored quite a lot of goals last season. That was always a surprise, wasn't it? He for some reason he is quite good at finishing. So at the end of the day, if someone's through 1-on-1, you want your people that can finish. And that's the thing. I've got a feeling that even though we played them, I don't think it'll be, well, actually, I don't know. I was going to say, will it be a game where we don't get any chances whatsoever? But there have been some games like that first half against Spurs where we didn't even, I think our best chance was like Bobby Reed hitting it from 45 yards out because someone made a miscontrol, right? That was our one chance in that half. So it could be a rough one. But yeah, we need to have some kind of threat, because you don't have any threat at all, then, it's just going to be embarrassing.
Yeah. Daka will DDT Kukurea again. Here's we'll read a couple more comments out. Ryan May says, if any team knows how to play against Enzo style, surely it's these players. They were drilled on how to try and stop it. I mean, that's a good point, isn't it? In training, they would have done drills against each other. So
they will, but I guess what I'm saying is they're also against the guy who made the system. So if anyone's going to know how you beat the system, he's going to be the guy to do it. So I think that the players probably, at the first game of the season, like, who do you want to play? And we're like, we want to play Enzo. We want to play against Enzo. We want to show him that we can do this style against his team. But I think now that it's gone on a little bit further, it's not going to look so good.
Yeah, there's no chances. I mean, I don't think anyone is expecting any more Enzo ball at Leicester now. 3-5-2, Vardy and Mavididi up top. That was, I think, what Ragsy did for his team. Skipping JJ on the wing. See, look, the people are already going with a skip as a wing back or inverted.
Well, actually, because Brookline said this quite a few times. He said, like, because here's the thing, right? And again, I know everyone hates him in chat, but you have to give him a lot of credit. Brendan Rodgers, in the COVID season, the season after COVID, but COVID was still going on, if you remember, right? We basically had Harvey Barnes get injured, so we had no wingers. And what he did is he went 3-4-1-2, and he put in Kelechi Iheanacho next to Jamie Vardy. And Kelechi Iheanacho absolutely exploded, and he started scoring that hat-trick and everything, and he took us to the FA Cup final. And he didn't have the best final, but he absolutely was the reason why we got there. And that system, it was kind of funny. It didn't have the same sort of control as the other system that he preferred, but it was effective. So I think you have to give him credit that he found a way to get results despite having some key injuries. So to be honest with you, that's why I said to you guys when you presented that system that I quite liked it, because you are doing something different. It is trying to make the best out of the players we've got, and maybe it could work. So I'm not against that at all. And yeah, like I say, I would rather see us try something different. And here's the big thing. I think going forward, what I've got on there, I don't think we can play it at all. I think we've got to play something different now and try and find it. And I think this is what a good manager is going to be about, right? A good manager sometimes, I think in the dreamland, you have this like set style and you coach your team in that style and you play it, but we're not there. Well, what I would personally say is I do think it shows you the flaws in our squad building in the summer. Because I think that, let's say, if Enzo Maresca was still in charge, we'd have signed more wingers. We'd have signed the left-sided centre-back who could better at passing the balls out. So as I say, now because Fatawu, let's say either Fatawu or Mavididi is injured, who in the squad plays in those positions?
I don't know.
One. Because we don't have players. I know some people have said like Will Alves and stuff like that, but he's more of like an 8 or a 10. He's not like a winger. Like, he literally would have said to the scouting team, Martin Glover, find me someone who's fast, is good at dribbling, good at beating people one-on-one, can finish. Like, they're the attributes that you want. Look at Buonanotte. He's a great player, but he's not really someone that's going to necessarily beat you one-on-one. He's better in other places, like, good at progressing the ball, good at those key passes, good finisher, to be fair. He's a great player, but it's not like you could just slot him into the same system and expect the same result.
Yeah. Ryan says here, I rate McAteer, very direct player with pace and good in the air, being 6'2". Buonanotte has already been used there, so might just get stuck there. And Armchair Jockey, interesting take that I don't think I've heard before. I'd rather play McAteer as a striker. Very interesting. Very interesting. If you want to hear some wild lineup takes, go back after this video. Go listen to Fox's Den from last night, because there are some really interesting takes on there. But yes, thanks, Anil, mate, because it's been really, really interesting. educational as always, and a little bit depressing as well. I'm surprised I didn't wear these all the way through. But I think
do you know what I was going to say? The one thing that might help us out is apparently there's a massive storm that might be hitting Leicester around the time of the game. So if we're lucky, we'll have the game called off and we won't have to play him yet. That's where we've got to in this particular game.
That's the thing, mate. It genuinely, like, that is how that is probably what some fans will wish for, the game to be put to an end at some point, put out of our misery. But there we go.
Yeah. So everyone, thank you for tuning in. And what's coming up next? So tomorrow, I believe you're up, Locks.
Yes, I am. Tomorrow night, it is going to be the Team Predict show, which is very good. It's going to be very interesting because I don't know what we're going to do. I suppose there's less players to pick from now, Anil, but no, I will be with Ant for that one. So Ant will be joining me on that one at 7 p.m. tomorrow. We're going to try and predict the team that we want as fans with help from the chat, and also the team we think Steve Cooper is going to go with. So 7 p.m. tomorrow night.
Yeah, and then if you want to catch us on Matchday Live, it's a 12:30 kickoff. This one's our first one of the season, so things are going to start a bit earlier than that. What time do the lineups come on? Probably be 11:30 or something like that, right? So
what times kick off again? Is it 2?
No, I believe it's 12:30.
Oh, 12:30, yeah. So it'll be an hour and 15 minutes before whatever that is.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
Yeah, 12:30, Saturday the 23rd. So set your clocks for that one. Good for some other international audience, though. I bet you Luke will be on it for once.
Yes, he will. Yeah, he will. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. Keep it locked on to Blue Tinted Glasses. Please like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. And we'll see you tomorrow.